hello. Okay, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, the final installment in the DC cinematic universe. The synopsis is, when an ancient power is unleashed, Aquaman must forge an uneasy alliance with an unlikely ally to protect Atlantis and the world from irreversible devastation. James Wan returns to direct the sequel here, which I was really happy with because I'm a big fan of his first movie. I really like that kind of very 70s, 80s retro sci-fi fantasy aesthetic to that first movie, and I think they did a really good job at balancing the humour with the more serious tones, as well as just having characters that I liked. You know, likeable characters. It was fun, it was enjoyable, it wasn't perfect, but I cared about the characters and their journeys, and I just found it a very immersive, enjoyable, entertaining experience. Unfortunately, The Lost Kingdom is the complete opposite to that first movie for me personally. It lacks soul, it lacks character, it lacks depth, it lacks heart. There is an attempt at injecting character and heart into this movie, but it's just lost among all the noise. Like, this movie really doesn't stay still or just doesn't stop for the entire duration, for the entire 2 hours. So you would think that this film is entertaining, but for me personally, it was more of a slog. And like I said, there is plenty of action within this movie, but I found myself appreciating these moments more from a technical perspective than just being entertained. Like, I really like the way in which James Wan shot a lot of these moments and a lot of these action set pieces. Like, there is this one moment with Aquaman and Black Manta, which I thought was quite fun, but that was down to the way in which it was shot. That's how I found it fun and sort of interesting, because of the way in which James Wan directed these moments and just how he used the camera in these moments. But when it comes to actually caring about what's happening with these characters, I couldn't give a shit. I just really couldn't get invested into these characters' journeys, and just a lot of it is down to the way in which these characters are portrayed and how they are written within this movie. And so, unfortunately, the action, which there is a lot of, like I said, this movie doesn't stay still, it just became noise to me, because I just couldn't really get immersed or care about what was actually happening within these moments, which should have been fun and entertaining, but they did absolutely nothing for me. But I did appreciate them from a technical perspective, just like I just said, from just the way in which James Wan would shoot these moments. I thought they were quite creative and imaginative, like with the first movie. And with all that aside, I think it would be unfair for me to suggest or say that there's zero attempt at giving us an experience that has heart, that's emotional, that's deeper, that's got characters that we can get invested in, because I personally believe the attempt is there. The ingredients are all there. You know, the beating heart of this story is Arthur Curry becoming a dad and trying to navigate being a father as well as the king of Atlantis, and then you've got his relationship with his brother, the Ocean Master. So all the ingredients are there to sort of really give us something that could have been a lot deeper, a lot more emotional, a lot more heartfelt, and just an experience where we could have really got invested into these characters' journeys. But unfortunately, it just ends up feeling like they've sacrificed all of this character and heart to give us something the studio hopes we will just consume over and over again. This film feels like a product that the studio are forcing down our necks, and you might recognise that criticism of mine from another review recently this year, and that's The Marvels. That's another sort of superhero movie that I felt was doing the same thing, and I felt like they were doing it here. Like, the attempt is there, the heart, the beating heart of this story is there, but just the way in which the narrative and just how it all plays out is sort of constructed and put together, you kind of just lose all of that, and it just becomes this kind of very empty, soulless mess. I've always liked how Jason Momoa has brought this character of Aquaman to life ever since we were first introduced to him in Batman v Superman, then Justice League, then his very own solo movie. I've just really liked what he's done with the character. Yes, as the DC Cinematic Universe has altered its direction over the years, so has Momoa with his portrayal of the character in sort of like tone and just personality. It's been nothing major. Or too obvious, but you could kind of see those kind of shifts with how they've sort of portrayed these characters. When it comes to the Lost Kingdom, he completely loses me. I found Jason Momoa in this movie to be incredibly annoying. He's just too over the top. He's too goofy. And I just didn't like what he was doing with the character. To me, it was too much of a tonal shift in personality. It wasn't the same character that we were introduced to back in Batman v Superman and Justice League. And even his first movie. Like, yes, there's shifts in his personality and tone. But this, for me, was just too much. And I just found him incredibly annoying. I felt like his performance kind of came across a little bit lazy at times, like he was just trying to be Jack Sparrow in moments, then he was also trying to be another character that he'd played in the Fast and Furious. It just felt like a mess, and it kind of just summed up my overall experience of this movie. The strongest performance within this movie, and the only real character that I found interesting, is Patrick Wilson as his brother, Orm. He is trying his hardest with this very terrible script. But it's his relationship with Arthur that is the missed opportunity here within this movie. It just feels too silly, it's very cheesy, and it just doesn't quite work. I need to emotionally care about these characters on this journey, which could have been, along with Arthur raising his child, the real beating heart of this movie. But unfortunately, they just really fail at that. So there is a lot that I didn't like when it comes to this movie, but there is one thing that I really did like and appreciate, and that's the way in which James Wan brings this underwater world to life. Just with the design of the creatures and the costumes and the sets. Like, there are moments where I'm completely fixated to the screen because of the amount of detail that's put into bringing this world to life. It's simply great. And so it kind of leads me to believe that that you can kind of sense that there is another movie here somewhere. Like, it's not as obvious as previous movies within the superhero genre. You know, where these movies have just been cut to pieces and reshot and all of that. This isn't as obvious, but you kind of sense there to be in a different movie here somewhere. And it's in these moments where you're just sort of watching this world come to life on the screen. And I'm like, wow, like, this kind of looks great. Like, I'm loving the look. I'm loving that sort of very kind of retro 60s, 70s aesthetic to the movie. And it's like, it's kind of frustrating because you want to love what it is that you're watching, but unfortunately, because of all those other pieces just don't quite come together for me, it just became a really kind of frustrating experience and a mess. And when it comes to the CGI within this movie, I went on quite an interesting journey with it, because it ranges from being really bad to okay, it's serviceable, it's doing what it should to move the story along, to being very interesting. Like, the CGI and the quality of it was just very inconsistent throughout this movie. And what I mean by interesting, and I think this goes back to me sort of kind of sensing there being another movie here somewhere. There's a moment in the third act with CGI, which it looks like stop animation. That really kind of plays into that very 60s, 70s retro science fiction look to the film. And I fucking loved it. You know, there's this moment that just kind of really has that very retro fantasy vibe to it, and a lot of it's down to just the way these effects play out in this moment. And it kind of, it frustrated me because it's like, oh, is there a different movie year maybe? Because I really liked what they did in that moment with the CGI and how they made it look like the stop animation, and it kind of just really played into that kind of aesthetic and look of the film. And so, yeah, the CGI was a bit of a frustrating one because there's moments in which it's quite bad, there's moments in which it's okay, and then there's moments where I thought, oh, that's interesting, I really kind of like that. It's kind of got that kind of very retro look to it. So yeah, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom was a massive disappointment for me, and it was a very frustrating one as well. I know it's the final film in the DC cinematic universe, and maybe that kind of played a tiny part into how I felt, or how I felt towards this movie. But then you've got a film like Blue Beetle that introduced us to a new character this year, that had characters that I cared about, that was fun, that was entertaining, that did have heart, yet I don't even know if that's going to be carried over into James Gunn's soft reboot. So I really don't know. But this was a massive, massive disappointment. So yeah, enough rambling on from me. I'll be giving Aquaman The Lost Kingdom a 3.5 out of 10. So yeah, they are my thoughts on Aquaman The Lost Kingdom. But what did you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you agree or disagree with anything I've said? Then let me know in the comments below and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to see future reviews from just some random Welsh geek rambling on, then please hit the subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. I've got a lot of videos planned over the coming weeks. I've got one more review left for this year, and that's going to be for Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon. I'm going to be watching that tonight, and I'll have a review up before the new year. I've also got my top 10 favourite movies of the year coming, as well as my top 10 favourite moments in film from the year on the way as well. So a lot of videos planned, and I'm just really looking forward to sharing with everyone my thoughts and opinions on what is one of my big passions in life, and that is film. I just want a big thank you to everyone that subscribed to my channel over the year and helped me hit my target of 200 subscribers. It means so much, and I got so much more planned for the new year. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Enough rambling on from me, and I'll be catching you guys soon.